Hey guys, welcome back to the Arthritis Podcast, official podcast of digital and creative media works, where each week we take something from pop culture and try to break it down to better understand it. My name is David.
My name is Arn.
I'm going to put my water over here, and please don't drink it again. Now, Arn, we're back for one reason and one reason only. You've returned from the academic abyss from where you live.
Yes.
And I've pulled you back into the world of the living because we're doing Immersion Month, and so we thought, what better way than to keep talking about Red Dead Redemption 2.
Absolutely.
Because you can't stop us, it's my show. And we're going to do this till we die, probably. Once a month, talk about this video game. So we're going to talk about
this particular video game as well.
Yeah, we're just going to do like a comprehensive spoiler cast, like start to finish, go through the story first. We're going to split it into two parts. There'll be like a 10-minute break in the middle where you can go to the bathroom, do whatever you need, and then we'll come back and have part two. I'm thinking we'll just split it by days on the podcast and the YouTube feed, so the next part will be posted the next day, so you can check it out then. Otherwise, we've talked about Red Dead Redemption 2. I finished it now.
Yes.
You started replaying it, insane.
I've started replaying this game, absolutely.
And how's
knowing
that
what I do now. And it's going well. I'm still enjoying it. It has really good replay value. Despite the criticisms for some of its systems. I'm still loving it. The novelty of this game will not wear off probably ever.
You're a big Western nerd anyway, though.
I do like Westerns.
For you, this was kind of right up your
alley. I like the idea of them in theory.
Yeah, in execution, they are something else.
It's a weird game.
I guess what I was expecting when I finished it, it might be a good place to start, actually. And then we'll do the summary. But I think, I got to the epilogue, and the epilogue, so, again, really big spoiler. So if you haven't played this game,
Be warned. I'm
about to spoil the ending of the video game. This is Spoilercast from here on out.
If you haven't played Red Dead 1,
also spoilers.
Already you're in deep territory with spoilers.
For everything.
Yeah.
So be forewarned, about to spoil the ending of the game, and just the whole, it's really both games. So when Arthur passes and you play as John,
yes,
I was predicting that when Arthur died, you would pick up the mantle of someone else, because that's what happens in the first game. And I went, who better than John? So it was like a natural progression.
It's funny because when I was playing through it, I immediately thought it was about the second act when I went, oh, who's gonna be the person that we play with afterward? Because everybody who's playing the game has probably played the first game, realizes that John is the main character, and then at the end, John dies and you play his son Jack.
Which people hated it.
People hated it. I still like it. I like it even more now.
I like it even more now, but I
knowing what I do about Jack as a child.
I think it works really well in hindsight, but at the time...
Yeah, at the time it was a bit...
Also, because he visually was less... the way that they styled him as an adult.
He was a little more contemporary,
it was a
I
bit
think.
Much.
Yeah. So around about Act 2, I started thinking, who am I going to take over at the end of all this? And it was after Sadie's mission where you realize that she's bloodthirsty.
She's a downright murderer.
And then as the game went on, she started taking up more of a gangster mantle. I figured, wow, this might be the game that we get to play a rock star female protagonist.
That would have been great.
And yeah, I figured, okay, so I had the two options. I was just like, John's probably what we're gonna play, but also Sadie's there.
I think in concept that's good.
Yeah.
But then I think what you get is it's and we'll talk about it when we get to that part of the story, but it's a return to it feels like breathing out after everything that's happened when you play as John at the start of that prologue. Whereas I think if you played as Sadie, she's very much like Arthur, so it would be very similar.
Yeah, I guess
they have a lot of similar kind of tendencies as far as the way that they conduct themselves. Whereas I think because John is so sarcastic and tight-lipped, it feels like slowing down.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it was Sadie, and you even see that when you help Sadie at the end, it's still that fast-paced lifestyle.
Yeah.
She hasn't really gone away
for
from
Sadie,
that.
exactly. Yeah. But she's become a bounty hunter and
precisely,
and is no longer running with a gang.
Yeah, she's just by herself. It's curious. So let's go through the summary, and then we can kind of go. I thought we'd start act by act generally, and then see where that takes us.
Yeah.
Because why not? So I'll just go through the whole summary and then we can kind of touch base and see where we're feeling. So, Red Dead Redemption 2 is the story of gunslinger Arthur Morgan. Arthur was raised by gang leader and idealist Dutch Vanderlyn and his associate and conman, Hosea Matthews. On the tail end of a botched ferry robbery in Blackwater, the Vanderlyn gang retreat to the hills west of New Hanover. After a train robbery to find their feet and get enough money, the gang moves to a camp near Valentine. Here, Dutch, Arthur, John, and the gang continue their work trying to gather enough money to flee further west. In their efforts to make money, they continually antagonize oil baron Leviticus Cornwall and also the O'Driscoll gang, of which Colm O'Driscoll, the leader, was once a running buddy of Dutch Vanderlyn's. After a job in Valentine, Arthur, John, Hosea, and Dutch are ambushed by the Pinkerton Detective Agency headed by agents Milton and Ross. The gang shoots Valentine to holy hell, barely escaping, and flees further west in a small camp by the country town of Rhodes. At Bill Williamson's suggestion, Arthur and co return to Valentine to rob the bank, finally securing the money they need to build the camp back to its former glory. While in Rhodes, the gang becomes embroiled in the politics of two old families, the Greys and the Braithwaites.
Yes, he's a little strange, but also so human. The rest of our families are stuck in the Dark Ages, or, well, I don't know, cave people, perhaps. Bo's different, but if they find out, they'll kill him and send me to live someplace awful like Ohio.
And Dutch, along with Hosea, think that there's old Yankee gold that one of the families has, they just don't know where it is or who has it. The gang continues to follow Dutch valiantly, and Arthur grows closer with Lenny and young Sean. Dutch's lack of planning and the gang's mistrust of Arthur's skepticism ultimately result in the Grey family ambushing and killing Sean in the center of Rhodes. Dutch and co. then ride to the Greys, intent on exacting revenge, but quickly learn that the matriarch of the family has kidnapped a young Jack Marston and given him to the greasy crime lord Angelo Bronte. The gang then rides to Saint Denis to flush out Bronte and find Jack, and immediately, once again, become wrapped up in local politics as Arthur and John work to recover John's son. Relationships in the gang become strained as Dutch uses Bronte's criminal history as an excuse to rob the rich of Saint Denis, which results in a barely planned bank heist. During the heist, Hosea and Lenny are killed.
I've given you enough chances. Come on! No! God damn it! There's your deal, Dutch.
Hosea.
And John is captured. In a desperate act, Arthur, Dutch, Bill, Javier, and Micah escape on a tanker bound for Cuba. When the tanker is sunk by a storm, the crew quickly surfaces on a sugar plantation island named Guarma, and immediately, once again, become embroiled in local politics, this time a civil war. On the island, Dutch grows almost instantly violent and aggressive in Hosea's absence, egged on by the young Micah, and even kills an elderly female guide on the off chance she might give away their position to the authorities. The crew escapes Guarma, returning to the US to find the gang has moved once again and is barely surviving, but with the help of Sadie Adler, they continue on. Dutch's behavior grows increasingly erratic, and though he claims to have a plan, Sadie Adler and Arthur take it upon themselves to rescue John from the Pinkertons. As John and Sadie grow increasingly disillusioned with Dutch, Arthur discovers he has contracted tuberculosis following his altercation with a diseased farmer, Thomas Downs, and begins to reevaluate his life in the face of his own impending death. Meanwhile, Dutch starts manipulating a local Native American tribe to allow him the freedom to steal government bonds and create enough of a distraction for the gang to flee even further west. Arthur provides John an injunction to leave with his family while they can, and sets his closing days in ensuring that John, his brother for all the world, can escape Dutch's mania. Dutch's Maniac. Sounds like an indie band. Hello, we're Dutch's Maniac, and we're here to party. Gang members begin to leave as Dutch's behavior continues to escalate. Molly O'Shea is killed by camp mother Susan Grimshaw when it's revealed that Molly is the one who's been informing the Pinkertons of their location constantly. So we think. Dutch orchestrates an attack on Cornwall, butchers Cornwall rather than take him hostage as they'd planned, and Arthur, along with Bill, Sadie, and John, start to sense Dutch's behavior is becoming ever more dangerous. Dutch proposes a final train job, and the entire gang rides out. The job, of course, goes south almost instantly. John is shot, and Dutch promises to go back for him, but as we find out later, has actually left him to die, insisting they have bigger problems to worry about. Abigail is captured by the Pinkertons, and equally, Dutch refuses to save her, prompting Arthur to finally cross the line and openly defy Dutch. Sadie and Arthur, the last two who believe in John, ride to the lakeside town of a trading port to then rescue John Marston. Abigail kills Milton during the rescue, and throughout the process, Arthur learns that Micah has been an informant for the Pinkertons all along, and that, by extension, Molly O'Shea is innocent. Arthur rides back to camp and confronts Dutch with the truth. But John and Arthur are immediately turned on by Dutch, Bill, Javier, and Micah as the Pinkertons arrive, led by Agent Ross. Arthur and John flee through the caves, and knowing he will die regardless, Arthur confronts Micah. Dutch arrives at the last moment as Arthur is dying and walks away, not going with Micah.
We won it. Come on.
John made it. He's the only one. The rest of us... No. But I tried. In the end, I did.
Come on. Let's go. We can make it. Come on, Dutch. Come on!
Years later, John Marston is trying to lead an honest life with his wife, Abigail, and his son, Jack, on Pronghorn Ranch. It's not long before John starts to turn to his old ways, and Abigail leaves with Jack, offering John the ultimatum. Grow up, or that's it. John sets to working the ranch life, and with the help of old friend Sadie Adler, gathers enough money to secure a bank loan for the rundown property of Beecher's Hope. John runs into Uncle, and together they start to prepare the land for farming, but when they hear news of Charles, they take a train to Saint Denis. With Charles in tow, Uncle and John set to building his home over a long few months. As they finish the house, Abigail and Jack return. Now settled and somewhat blissful, Abigail is constantly wary of John returning to his old life, but things do begin to quiet down. One day, Sadie rides to the farm with news of Micah Bell's whereabouts, and against Abigail's wishes, John and Charles ride with Sadie to the mountains. There, John Marston steps back into the Spurs, the man he once was, and guns down scores of Micah's men, fighting his way to the top of the mountain, where, at a cabin on the precarious edge of a cliff, he confronts the man who killed so many of his friends. At the last moments, Dutch emerges from the cabin, and Micah takes Sadie hostage. A broken shell of a man, Dutch has nothing to say as the standoff between them ends with Micah's body at Arthur's hand.
You shot me pretty good.
Thank you.
Dutch leaves without another word. An injured Sadie and Charles stay at Beecher's Hope while they recover, and John proposes to Abigail on the ocean by Blackwater. After the wedding, Charles and Sadie go their separate ways, leaving John and Abigail to finally enjoy the freedom Dutch talked about all those years ago. But for how long?
Not long.
It's
Not long is the answer. The answer,
the credits don't tell you what that time difference is. It
absolutely not. No,
it could be years. It could be months. It's implied it's soon, but like they might be scoping them out. Like, because in the post, do you want to explain that post credit? Like,
so the post credit sequence is Charles and Sadie eventually leaving the house at Beach's Hope.
Charles is going to Canada to find a wife.
Charles goes to Canada. Sadie disappears and becomes a for all we know, another bounty hunter.
Maybe that's Red Dead
drifter.
Redemption 3.
Well,
I
I have many theories about
we can talk about
Red
that
Dead 3.
at the end. Yeah.
I think also there is a sequence in the post credit scenes where the Pinkertons are on
They're on a
John's trail specifically when they go and inspect the bodies up on the mountainside and find Micah's corpse there. Okay, so I have so many conflicting feelings about the resolution of this game.
You mean with Micah?
With Micah, with everything after Guarma. So Guarma included in that, everything after Guarma and Guarma included is so crazy. Because the first however many bajillion hours of this game you play before you get to Guarma, they're so good.
It's old gold.
It's really quite good. I had reservations when you go into Rhodes and you're dealing with this Romeo Juliet love story between the two like younger members of the families. But even that had some really just fun moments, fun
really cool
GTA-like
twists.
moments,
Yeah.
rockstar moments. When you're driving the suffragette van.
That was really fun.
The sequence where you're trying to recover Jack is probably my favorite thing about that game. When the whole gang's together and they're walking down that huge straight line toward the Braithwaite mansion.
The guitar strings come in behind you.
Yeah. And then it's personal. Now we're coming to recover Jack, and people are just executing the Braithwaites wantonly.
They do that moment a few times in this game, and every time it happened, I got chills.
Yeah. That's about the time when I started to suspect Dutch had kind of lost it, because he the amount of relish that he had in killing the Braithwaites was a little on the nose, but everyone was supportive of it, because it was a personal slight against the gang, and the kind of like pseudo family that they'd established for themselves is so strong. The ties there is so strong that everyone was happy to go murder crazy with the Braithwaites. Even Arthur, even Arthur, who didn't really have a problem with.
They have Jack.
Yeah, they have Jack. Exactly.
That's the argument. Is like they go, well, they have Jack.
Yeah.
What else are we supposed to do?
Yeah, and once one of their own is taken, it sets a bad example to leave them behind. It's like
as Dutch says,
why they recovered Sean.
Yeah. Well, Dutch goes, what choice do we have?
Yeah.
Which is a recurring theme in this story as well.
Yeah, a lot Dutch tends to reduce things down to we have no choice but to do this.
Super have a choice.
And then in some cases, absolutely, the gang has a choice. And then during Guarma, because when I went, because I lost my mind when we went to
Such
to
a
a
weird
Cuban
twist.
island.
Yeah.
I went, oh my god, like that means that we're gonna be able to go back here. We're gonna be able to flesh this place
No,
out.
it
We'll
was
be able
just
to
a
take a
one-off.
tanker there. It was just a one-off map, and it was so empty. It was like
Very
it just had no character.
On Grand Theft Auto, on Rockstar, on Red Dead.
Yeah.
It didn't. I was trying to work out like what they would like, where their head was at with that, and I can't put it together. Like I can't quite work out. What they needed was an environment where Dutch, like Hosea dies, and that's the trigger for Dutch no longer having the other rational, like having someone rational next to him, and he's replaced by Micah's voice in his ear. But like I couldn't work out like story-wise why they put that in there, like why it's there at all, because you could do that in other ways. Like they could be like America's a big fucking place. Like they could have got trapped in Mexico. You've already built the bottom half of the map. Like you could have done,
Yeah.
In
And Mexico isn't in the game.
no, it's not in this one.
Yeah.
But they could have done something like that, where like they couldn't get across the border again, or like even if they were like trapped on like a cruise ship or something, and they had to wait for it to redock. There are other elements where you could like make something that had more character in a condensed way.
Yeah.
Whereas it just felt like a beach from Assassin's Creed 4. Like Felt like a you know, you've seen hundreds of these. It's characterless because it's only one in the game. It doesn't. I don't like even the boardwalk in Blackwater is so distinct from the other boardwalks in the game that it has its own flavor. And same with the trading post where you go to save John. That has, even though that also a boardwalk, has its own flavor.
Yeah.
And it just felt like that whole island just had no character.
Yeah, no, because it didn't. Because it was just there for that kind of one shot that the gang found themselves in.
That's what it felt like.
Yeah. With a little bit of polish, you know, and it's kind of suspicious that it is there at all. It feels like maybe at one point, you know, the plan was to go there at some stage. But again, the amount of time that you're there is brief in comparison to the rest of this game.
2 hours.
Yeah, and you go back to the mainland straight away, virtually. Which is in the aftermath of that. That's when the song starts playing. I was wondering when they were gonna try and
which one's that?
I Stand Unbroken. I don't know who it's by.
Well, when does it happen? I can't remember.
It is just as you get off the ship at the trading post, and you have to steal yourself a horse in order to go track down the gang coming back to the mainland.
Yeah, that's right. I walked.
You walked for the duration of that song. When you steal the horse, if you get past a certain barrier, it takes away the stamina bar, and you can just gun it in the direction that you're going.
I didn't because that makes sense. That makes sense. Because the other, like, there's a few other song moments, but that one was pretty good.
Yes.
Because I got there at nighttime for whatever reason, and I was walking like through the dark with my lantern out, and just like enjoying the song and like the scenery, and like, you know, that part of the world in particular is really pretty.
Yes.
When you get through that trading.
Yeah,
post,
Lemoyne is great. Lemoyne is probably the most fleshed out part of the game, I think.
It has the most. I like the mountains have. The snow in this game has a very distinct character.
Yeah, I find the times that the wildlife comes into it are in the mountains, especially fending off rogue packs of wolves.
Also bears.
And bears.
I got the amount of times where I was out hunting for something else and a bear just got me.
Yeah.
Like, because you around a corner and it's like, bang, you're dead.
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
you just hear it roaring and you're like, fuck, where is it?
And you're whipping around and it gets you from behind.
Yeah. But in Lemoyne, crocodile hunting in Lemoyne, the rivers, the swamps.
Dude, the swamp. Oh, hunting the
they're alligators, actually.
Sorry, they're alligators.
It's the northern hemisphere.
Hunting the legendary alligator, the bull alligator. That scared me shitless. That thing.
The quest
so
where
hard to kill.
The albino alligator.
Holy crap! And it just fucking comes at you.
Yes, yeah, like, it's terrifying.
And my sniper rifle, that was like, I clocked it one in the head, and I was like, cool, I'm good. And then it like looked at me. I was like, oh fuck, I'm not good.
Shit.
And I clocked it another one. Then it just fucking came at me. And I switched my shotgun and I'm dead eyeing and I'm trying to kill this thing. And it gets like right up to me and then kind of collapses and dies. But then I'm like, I don't know if I want to get near it. What if it's not dead? Like, I think we're like Rockstar would, wouldn't they?
Yes, I mean the attention to detail in Lemoyne is what really sells me on. And you've got your alligator snapping turtles, alligators themselves, like wild boar, the river snakes. You have crayfish, like you can pull crayfish up from
amazing.
The ground.
The way that through the holes.
Sturgeons that you can catch, and some of them hang pretty close to the shore. And you don't need to catch them with a fishing rod.
You can just pick them up with your hands.
Either pick them up with your hands or like shoot them in the face. Which is my favorite way of going fishing.
Incorrect. Dynamite fishing.
Dynamite fishing. Yes,
I've been doing that lately.
Blow everybody.
Yeah, you
everything
just toss
in that river up. And then like the toads, the frogs, all sorts of crazy life that they have.
It also adequately somehow in a video game communicates humidity, which is a hard thing to do in any medium. But when you're there, you feel like it's humid.
Yeah, it is. It is so disgusting walking around those areas.
I try and get Arthur into like the minimum amount of clothes I can possibly do. John at one point John doesn't wear a shirt, and I don't know how to get that back because I feel like that would be the perfect.
That's the meta playthrough. Shirtless John.
Well, that's like in AC Origins at the start of the game. You go into a bathhouse and you kill a dude, but you're like wearing a towel. And you just have that as an outfit for the rest of the game. So I played most of the game as a guy in a towel.
In a towel.
So I feel like that would be good as John.
Yeah. It's and then just getting back to the resolution of the game quickly. As you come back from Cuba, from Guarma rather, and you reunite with the gang, and everyone's back together. Dutch is like visibly crazy by that point, and you've got to find a new place to live because the Pinkertons come and storm the like shack that you're living in.
What the tumble down kind of old estate that you've?
It's like a house. Everyone's in this house together.
You've taken
and
it
then
from the Civil War. Guns,
yeah. Not the big plantation that you lived in before getting housed
No,
to.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah. The and then you go up into Annesburg.
Yes.
You go past Annesburg actually, and you live in the caves from then on.
What did you think of Annesburg as a setting?
I thought that was the most true to heart representation of what it would have been like to live then.
I don't know.
Even though I loved Lemoyne,
Lemoyne
as
and
a fleshed out area.
Roads to an extent felt like the Wild West because it's like hard pan, red dust.
It's red dust.
You know,
and like Strawberry and Valentine both had
muddy,
radically different aesthetics to the original game.
A lot of character.
Yeah, a lot of character to them both. Annesburg is I think like the utility of it and the fact that it's so grubby, it's so dirty. I think it's a coal town.
It's a mining town.
It is a mining town.
And they're mining coal and I think copper or something.
Something like that. And then you've got the rows of houses that just stretch up into the foothills and the mountains. And I think you've got like a general store and a gun store, and that's it.
And you can rent rooms and stuff and get drinks and stuff, but there's no bar, there's no hotel.
It's lifeless.
Yeah. The gunsmith owns all the property, so he can rent you rooms. Like, and
and the local gang of the area are these horrifying reprobates. They're the inbred mountain people.
They weren't as bad as the swamp people, I didn't think, because the swamp people hiss at you. I don't know if you've come across the swamp kind of
the
inhabitants.
Folks, yeah.
But
what the ones living in shanties and places
like
that, or
they ambushed me in the. So I was walking through to get to the big river so I could fish.
Okay.
And I was just strolling about having a good time, and I hear this like, and I'm like, oh, it's a snake. What's that, a snake? And then I hear like from the other speaker like, and I was like surrounding me, I'm like, the fuck is that? And like I take a step onto the road, and like from behind the trees, these like kind of people, these painted people emerge, and like. I'm like, what the fuck's happening?
Wait.
Then they bolt at me.
Right. Yeah.
And I literally like I was so uncomfortable. I was like, I don't want to. So I pulled out my gun. I pulled out my double barrel shotgun, and I'm like, these boys don't know what's about to happen. But yeah, whereas I think definitely like in Annesburg, it felt like everyone was a product of the industry around them.
Yeah.
Like the people that are the kind of people that have been there forever become the outlaws. Like they become the inbred, weird, twisted kind of.
I think up until then, like the towns have kind of been lensed with this romantic, like kind of film over them, the rose tint, especially like the Old West,
the Braithwaites and the Greys.
Yeah, that's real. southern town, Gone with the Wind kind of stuff.
Everybody has a big campfire at night and they chat and they hang out.
Yeah, and you can have those more social oriented love stories,
or even like when you get to Saint Denis and you have Bronte, who has this extravagant party, and Cornwall, who's very similar. Like they feel very like a romantic ideal of what that time was like.
Whereas Annesburg is like inhospitable.
You just wouldn't want to live there. It's bad.
But it's probably what it would have been like. It's so quiet, and the character of that place comes from its just lack of beauty and romance to it.
Yeah, and I think that gives it its character.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people might see that as like, oh, well, it's just not interesting. But I like even the river around it like is a bit polluted and brown and gross.
Well, the
mining runoff and the silt.
Yes, the water is disgusting.
And everyone there seems miserable and like when you say hi to people, they just fucking look at you.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a happy place. And I like that as a contrast with Dutch's kind of growing mania.
Yeah.
Where he's getting more and more frantic, and there's just this place that's quiet and settled and industry, and he's getting to this headspace. And I thought that kind of contrast was something that
It also feels like there's just no wealth there.
well, there's no old money. It's all industry.
It's all industry.
Well, it's built around the mine.
Yeah,
the whole town.
and then it's kind of a future situation where, you know, all the money is also, it's probably back in Saint Denis, you know, this town is probably funding it, and these are like the scraps that the gang are now forced to kind of
Bottom of the barrel.
yeah kind of deal with
Largely because
there's no
Dutch
bank.
killed
Yeah,
everyone
there's no
else.
bank in Annesburg either.
Have you tried robbing the gunsmith yet?
No,
You do not get much.
I bet you
So,
don't.
yeah.
You don't get a lot robbing anybody face to face in this game.
Unless you rob the doctors in Valentine. Because he's got that secret
There's
room in the back.
every city.
Wait, we did that, didn't we?
Yeah, every city has that secret. So in Rhodes,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Funny anecdote here. My favorite gunsmith was the gunsmith in Rhodes. It just seemed to be that I kept returning to this gunsmith, and over a while he was just like, "Oh, you're back again." And I go, "Yes, I am here to procure more ammunition for my death machines." And and so like this guy, he's like this like porcine, you know, like red-headed. He kind of reminds me of Pearson. But he's, you know, just kind of dude making a living selling guns. And if you go around the side of his house, someone calls out to you from his basement, and it's this young man dressed as a baby. And he goes, "You need to get me out of here."
I don't know if I
And
like this
Arthur says, "What are you doing down there?" And I went, "Yeah, what the fuck are you doing down there?" And you go in, and if you rob the store, it was classic too, because I came out, went to the side, talked to this guy, put my bandana on, came straight back inside to this gunsmith
like,
that
"What are
I'm
you doing?"
going to,
Yeah.
and I went, "Let me into the downstairs area," and he does. And as you come downstairs, there's this guy. He's chained to the basement. He can't escape.
What the fuck?
And you see all this childlike paraphernalia lying around, your bonnets and you know, toys.
Is it his kid?
It isn't his kid. It's someone he kidnapped
That's so fucked
to
up.
fill the hole
That his
that
dead
a
kid
dead
left.
child left behind. And you have all these photos of the child itself.
Fucking hell.
And he's like, please don't take my son away. And you have the choice whether to set this guy free or leave him there, because like no one stops you from taking the rewards in the room, right? Because you get an early repeater there. You get
The
an early,
Litchfield?
I think the
Or-
Litchfield. Yeah. And you know, like, you've got this gun now, and you can use it to free the kid who just runs away immediately.
Well, yeah.
Or you can just turn around and walk out
Jesus
like nothing
Christ.
happened.
That is some shit.
Yeah, it is really really harrowing. And I left there, and I was just like, I can't ever go back to that gunsmith knowing what I
would've
do
killed
now.
him.
I didn't. I tied him up and I left him down there.
That's basically killing him.
Basically, yeah. But I figured, like, if I start shooting now, the law's gonna get involved, and that's the other thing that is ever present in this game is how hard it is to be an outlaw, how hard it is to be evil in this game.
I think it. When I do another playthrough in about a year's time, when I'm done with what I'm currently working on, I think I'm gonna try and go full evil. Like,
It's
really
really difficult. It's
yeah,
so
but you
difficult.
say that, but I think what it is expensive. Because
Yeah.
one of the things I've noticed in Rockstar games, especially Red Dead, because like the death system in this one works differently, is dying costs a lot of money. The only advantage I can think of is the most expensive part of dying is horses and the bit of money you lose. But if you're constantly stealing horses and selling them and shit, that could kind of alleviate some of that cost.
It just means that a vast amount of the game goes unexplored. Like you can steal horses. I've thought about this. I'm just like, the money that you're getting from being bad passively over time, sure, you might be able to eke the living out, and it's so easy to accrue the dishonor. It's difficult to accrue the good honor. Like like your honor points in the right hand side of the spectrum are. So it's such a grind to be good. Even now, like consciously being good that I am now.
I keep making decisions and the game goes, well, that's not moral.
Yeah, exactly.
Which it's interesting.
Like there'll be that classic situation where the O'Driscolls will have held up a stagecoach full of, like with 2 lawmen and there's a prisoner, like an O'Driscoll prisoner in the back, and you go ahead and gun down all the O'Driscolls and start looting the bodies, and you accidentally loot a lawman and take dishonor points as a result, and you go, who's watching?
Well, like
there's no god here looking at this. It's just me and the bushes.
It's me. It's just me and my horse.
Me and my horse. Is my horse judging me? Is it like, do I have to be in constant fear of like this strange objective?
I had the same problem last night where I was riding somewhere and my phone rang, so I turned and I was holding X, and I turned from the controller to my phone.
Yeah.
And hit someone in the game, like with my horse, and
yeah.
he died. And I was like, well, he's dead. I'm gonna see what he's got. And the game was like dishonor, and I was like, fine, I'm checking his horse too. Like I was like, fine then, I'm doubling down. It dishonored me for that as well. But yeah, it's like you get dishonor for killing any horse ever.
Yeah.
Horses aren't like positively aligned. They're animals.
It's so strange. Yeah, like
it's weird.
It does make you feel bad for doing, like, obviously I don't know how many people are going out of their way in this game
it's a useful tactic
horses.
Sometimes. If
sometimes
there's a row
it's a useful
riders
tactic.
And
yeah.
you can, like, it's a good thing to do something. Also, it's not going to stop me from getting a dynamite arrow and shooting a horse with it.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm still going to do that.
Horses are going to blow up.
Right? But yeah, it's Which, by the way,
it's collateral damage.
The dynamite arrows are the greatest fucking weapon in this. I don't know if you've used them yet.
No, I haven't.
They are the greatest fucking weapon in this video game because they are like, you know how like in other video games when you get like a gun that shoots a bullet that then explodes.
Yeah,
it's like a grenade or something. It's whatever.
Yeah,
but dynamite is very directional in the way that it explodes. And this is just like a physics thing. So like because it's a stick. Right, it goes outwards like that.
Yeah.
So when you shoot it into someone, it's going that ways and that ways, and one of those ways is through the head. And some things can happen. Okay, like there's some things can happen with dynamite arrows, and like that was what I liked about being Arthur is he felt much more resourceful than John, like in the gameplay mechanics sense because you craft those weapons. Like I mean, you'll know I'm all about crafting systems, right? Like as long as I don't have to think about it too much, and I can put together something real quick. I love that shit. And yeah, the ability to like, you know, when I was doing that mission with Charles where you sneak into the fort.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't make any noise, and you have your bow and your throwing knives or whatever.
Right.
I crafted some like some improved arrows.
Oh yeah.
And then I also crafted a dynamite arrow because I was like, you never know when you're gonna need one.
You're gonna need one. Yeah.
And sure enough, the shit hits the fan, and he's like, blow this thing up, and I'm like,
all right,
go right. Bang, it's open. Don't use the cannon. Good, like, nice shortcut, right? But then I'm like, oh, I really wish I had another one. So I duck behind the cover and quickly craft one. Like, and then, you know, these riders are coming up. And I wonder what happens if I just do it in the middle of a group of people on horses. It's not pretty.
Yeah, it's legs, I imagine.
There's just limbs everywhere. But again, like, that for me, when people talk about, like, gameplay freedom, I guess, because it's an open world game, there's not many ways you can approach situations, but the way that you choose to execute on problems...
Yeah.
And the way that influences the way the character feels as well, I think, is especially strong in this. Like, the way that Arthur deals with problems. Maybe this would be, like, a good opportunity to talk about Arthur as a character, but the way that he deals with problems, for me, feels very different than John. John, even the way that you play them, John has, like, much better Deadeye abilities the minute you get him, right? Like, he's immediately better, he's younger, he's faster, he can draw his gun faster, like, all of that stuff. He's just better because he's younger and he's like a natural gunslinger, whereas Arthur is kind of a curmudgeon when it comes to that stuff, you know? And I think that's, you know, we talked about it last time, but the whole gang treats him like this blunt instrument. But
they do sling a lot of shit on him. They accuse him of being an idiot. When I just don't think that's the case. I think a lot of people are criticizing him for the appearance of being silly.
He has he talks slowly and
he's not like John, you know, like John's John I think is more heavily based on Clint Eastwood's character from the Leone movies.
He's very much.
He's like wry,
He's sarcastic,
cunning.
he's quick.
But Arthur's this like this tank. Especially when you first meet him. And then again when you play the epilogue and you see how skinny John is,
there's a moment when you first walk out and I'm like, John ain't got no meat in his bones.
Jesus, John, eat a steak or something.
Eat a fucking candy.
Yeah, and I immediately went to the player profile. I was just like, Jesus, he must be underweight, but it's actually perfect. Like his weight in that scene is the perfect.
He's a skinny bitch.
John weight. Yeah, exactly.
Arthur's very solid.
Arthur's this is meat wagon.
But that's what I say. Like he feels like a curmudgeon in every sense of the word.
Yeah,
where he is the it's like the unstoppable force meets an immovable object. I feel like Arthur is always that immovable object.
He's approaching 40 in the game, and isn't he? He's like
by the end
39?
of it, he is. By the end of it, he is. And then there's even that scene at the start, but like that's why I think he's so intimidating as the attack dog. Like that scene at the start of the game where you rob that first of Cornwall's trains, and you're standing on top of the thing, and you got your cowboy hat on and your black coat on, and you have the big shotgun.
Yeah.
The train headlight kind of makes a silhouette of you. You're like, this guy is a fucking outlaw. But then as the game goes on, you go, okay, well, kind of like he is, but also he just is also a bit slow sometimes. And like, he reminds me a lot of Roland from the Dark Tower stories. I don't know if you've read those.
No.
So Roland is like the atypical gunslinger. He's like the Clint Eastwood style gunslinger. He's clever and he's good on the gun, but he's not this like fastest thinker. But they describe him in the stories as Roland was never the top of his class, but he always got there in the end.
Yeah.
Whereas not everyone did that. Whereas it definitely feels like John in comparison is the kind of glib, quick-lipped, the kind of the sarcastic punch. Like, I guess in our analogy, like you would be Arthur, I would be the John character. Like, I would think... should they write our story? That's kind of how the vibe I think is.
So the difference, like I think the difference between John and Arthur is not to disagree with this analogy. The difference between them is purely what they're in the gang for. Because I don't think either of them are schemers. Hosea and Dutch. Micah, to an extent, they're schemers. Like they're the plan makers, the people who have things going on underneath. Hosea is always more transparent about his. You see, like I got the impression, especially early on in the game, that Arthur and Hosea trusted each other, and had an unwavering trust for each other. And that maybe once upon a time Arthur had that with Dutch, but after the job in Blackwater in the initial stages of the game. Doesn't possess that anymore.
Especially when you discover why that job went wrong and like the ferry and all that stuff. Like it has an element of feeling like that trust with Hosea is still intact, and then it's even more ironic and disappointing or heartbreaking, I guess, whatever you want to call it. That
Hosea dies,
because it's Dutch's fault.
Yeah,
and that's It's not,
they could have left, which they should.
That's not Micah's fault. It's Dutch's fault.
Yeah. Well, it's not Micah's fault directly. But again, Micah's kind of vying for power. Micah wants to be one of the top dogs,
I have a theory that we'll talk about later. I think his character is overcorrecting because he is talking to the law. He's trying to be an outlaw, like a double, triple outlaw. Because he's trying to distract from the. It's like when you cheat on someone, right? When you're cheating on your wife or whatever, when you're with them, you try and give them as much affection as you can to throw them off the scent. That's how you know they're acting weird. That's my theory with Micah.
Look,
but then he's still a double, triple outlaw by the end of the game.
Mine's. I've already kind of talked about this with you before the podcast. About Micah's character. I think it was kind of a misstep by Rockstar to have him be the one that betrayed the gang.
It didn't quite work.
For me, it didn't quite work, especially because I was like, hang on, like you get back from Guarma, and that's when Milton reveals that when you get back from Guarma, that's when Micah's picked up. And he's picked up then, and that's when he decides to betray the gang. And he immediately goes back to ride with them. I just felt a bit contrived to me.
Yeah,
Especially when there were other candidates, which I think may have been much more suitable for that position.
Lenny's dead by that point, right?
Lenny's dead by that point, but
Who would you have picked?
I would have picked Javier Escuela. Because like Javier just hasn't got anything on him toward the end of the story.
He's also not really part of the story at all.
Yeah, you've had bits on Charles, on Bill, on Micah, on Lenny,
Even
on
Uncle to an
Sadie,
extent.
Uncle. Javier is just pushed to the wayside and is completely left alone, and that puts him in the prime position of
To be the informant.
to be the person because no one's had an eye on him.
He's under the radar.
Yeah, exactly.
would've worked really well,
Would have worked perfectly. But Micah's given that role because by that point everybody hates him, and that's something I think Rockstar really misstepped in is how precious they were about the characters they built up over time. But we can maybe discuss that in the second.
I think that'll become part of the second part. Yeah.
But in terms of Arthur and John's character, I see them as being kind of the same, like on the level of intellect, same kind.
I see them very similar, but I mean in the way that they express their particular brand of intellect and the way that shapes their lives.
Yeah, like I think by the end of the game, especially, Arthur can continue being the outlaw that he is because he just doesn't have a tie within the gang as much as John does, which is why I don't think you see John getting his hands dirty as much because that's something that Arthur tends to sling toward
Immediately.
John.
Arthur tends to always volunteer and then rope in John.
Yeah, in the beginning of the game, he says, he reveals that he's a bit upset with John for disappearing for a year, and then returning, and then just kind of cajoles him, takes some cracks at him about it getting his hands dirty again. But he has a family now. And that's something that it isn't really covered upon until later in the game, but it's something that is present, I think, throughout, where he's definitely changed as a person, and he's come back only to be with his family.
I guess for Arthur, that starts as a symptom of John not stepping up, but then as the game progresses, he starts to realize that's actually like that's why he supports John, is because he realizes that family is actually as important to John as.
Well, that's the thing that can survive out of all this.
And
something
this game did really well is that when all of that transpires and you get to the end of the game and it's Uncle and it's you and it's the family and you're in this ranch and whatever. And I fucking love Abigail's character in this game because it's one of the few times that you get to see because by the time we get to the first game, it's all this other shit's happened. But in this, you get this glimpse of the genuine life that they had, and they have trouble, sure, but she seems so fucking happy, and John seems so goddamn happy, and they have this great sarcastic banter, but it's not mean, it's fun, and I was just damn, and they even the way that they make her character emote and the voice acting from Abigail in the end of that game is fucking phenomenal. I was so impressed with that. In contrast to throughout the game when Arthur, when Abigail kind of gets characterized off screen by everyone else, because she's not really in a lot of the game.
No.
She's hanging around sometimes, but she's rarely at the camp as well. And what it means is that your characterization of her is built through indirect characterization.
And how much you talk to her, I think, in the camp as well.
Absolutely.
It's nothing as insightful as the end of the game. But seeing the camp is such a great place to see how everybody's interacting with one another.
A genius choice.
And you can kind of it's like a ghost characterization where they're not actually like focusing or honing in on one character in particular. But you do see those people at work, and you're seeing how those people contribute to keeping the camp alive, and the presence, or rather the lack of people's characters' presence in the end stages of the game when you're up in the mountains above Annesburg, and slowly everybody's leaving the camp. Suddenly, you can't, you can't restock your caravans anymore.
There's just no one to do the jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Like eventually Pearson leaves and you can't even eat there anymore.
Yeah.
It really affected me because, like, you know, I had everything built up by the time I got to Rhodes.
Well,
you know?
you smartly told me to do that as well, and it
Yes,
really
I
made the
say,
impact of losing it.
Yeah. Make an early camp. The best way to play this game is to make an early camp, because then by the end, when you do see everything go away, you go, oh my god, all my work,
all that hard work,
all like everything that I've done in this game is going. And it's not because, and I think this is why it's very difficult to be bad. Because when you're bad, when you're an evil character in this game, you can go back to camp and replenish your supplies.
Yep.
But by the end of the game, if you haven't changed your behavior to be more in line with being a good character, it would be a slog to get through the end of this game. Because there's just no way to get the essentials or specific things that you might need for the quest.
The specificity. I think. Yeah, it's interesting. I think to wrap up this half, I want to talk about Dutch quickly.
Yep.
And then we can kind of wrap it up and then come back for part 2. Dutch is the center of this story, I think. And I think I wanted to open it with a quote from the second game, which is mirrored a quote from the first game, which is mirrored in Red Dead Redemption 2. But it's when you're about to kill him. And he's on the cliff and John has him at gunpoint. And he's laughing. Like, John's like, well, I have to fucking shit. Like, you know, Dutch tosses his gun away. And John's like, look, well, like, if you don't tell me what I need to hear, I gotta fucking kill you. Like, I got a choice. He's like, and he says,
We can't always fight nature, John. We can't fight change. Can't fight gravity. We can't fight nothing. My whole life, all I ever did was fight.
Then give up, Dutch.
But I can't give up, neither. I can't fight my own nature. That's a paradox, John. You see?
Then I have to shoot you.
When I'm gone, they'll just find another monster. They have to. Because they have to justify their wages.
it was fight. Yeah. And then he throws himself off the cliff.
Mm.
And then, of course, the agent shoots him in the head and says, it'll be better for the report if they think you shot him.
If they think you shot him,
yeah, fuck that game's funny. But like that kind of that realization on his part is, I think, like a great coda to his insane belief system, like his true belief in the American dream. That is a coda where he's like, well, you can't fight like the elements of nature, and one of those elements of nature is like change. Like life is change, and his entire story, like the entire thing he's doing this story is fighting against that change and fighting against like the systems. Like, I mean, like his entire belief system is like classic liberalism, where it's like it's about opposing something and opposing control and the order of civilization, but he never really like stands for anything. Like at the start of the game, it's like, yeah, brotherhood and whatever, but like there's nothing to replace it with. He's not like, yeah, when we get to the West, this is how we'll live. He's just like, if we can get the freedom, you know.
No, he doesn't. Yes, he doesn't have a plan.
There is no plan.
There is
guys.
no plan. He keeps gaslighting the gang by saying the plan is to do this.
It's
Once
all
we have
according
a plan,
to plan.
It's going according to plan. We're gonna rob a bank, gonna get a heap of money, and then we're gonna go west. And the real like. This is something again we've talked about. The real kind of character, like the two dogs inside Dutch's character that are attacking each other, right? It's him loving the gang that he has, loving the family that he's built, loving the life that they lead, and wanting the best for them, but also reckoning with the fact that he has spent his entire life being an outlaw, and it's so easy to make money in this world if you aren't a part of the societal fold. Yeah, it's so easy to rob stagecoaches and rob banks and rob people.
And they're pretty good at it.
And they're really good at it.
Yeah.
And you know, as much as he, in one hand, promises that they're going to go west, that they're going to go to Haiti or out of America to Australia is even mentioned at
Which I
one
thought was
point.
kind of fun.
And and he keeps promising these things to them. But inside, I just don't think he's ever going to be able to give that up.
I think because an underpinning of his personality is being the underdog. Like, he needs to be under the heel of the law. Like, he has to be escaping something because that's where he finds his identity.
I think that's where he needs to position himself, because without that, there's none of this. Look at there's none of this kind of wishful thinking about the West. There's no story there. There's no promise
Because
of
if you're
something
just fine,
better.
if you're
If
just
you're-
fine, like, or
yeah.
surviving, it's not as
Exactly. If there wasn't anything like that, and they were just outlaws for the sake of being outlaws, it would be very difficult for them to
or even to
kind of reckon with the
justify-
fact that they're doing bad things, but for a good reason.
and he says, "Oh, well, the O'Driscolls are the bad guy. They're the bad
Yeah.
version of us."
And he does paint them in a very convincing light, because he goes, I think early in the game somebody asks, do you recognize any of them? And he goes, Colm doesn't care about who he brings into the gang. If you can fire a gun, ride a horse, and you
You're
can
in.
join him. And it does feel like that.
This is so many of them.
Because like your experience of the gang is that you're within them and you have this kind of jovial relationship with them.
It's probably what it's like in Combs' gang as well. Like,
It might be, yeah.
but we don't know.
We
But
just don't
it's
know.
Dutch's narrative.
Yeah.
And I think that, to me, is a brilliant device to give all of these characters something to constantly be interrogating.
Mm.
And it gives the whole story like this. Like, sometimes you watch Dutch and you're so captivated.
Mm.
And it's like suddenly, like, sometimes you see like the edge of his programming and like the kind of, you glimpse through to something else. And I think Guarma like was a bit heavy-handed in that regard, but there's some elements later on where you think, like, there's a moment like toward the end where I was like, wait, was this part of his plan? I was like, hang on, it could be. Where he's
Which
like,
part was that? What,
where
the-
they killed Cornwall, so the government annexed the oil field. Like, he had this elaborate explanation of why, like, he was making the Indians attack it, and it was related to like Cornwall's oil empire and the train and the bridge, and I was like, that is way too coincidental. Like, he's not the Joker from the Dark Knight. Like, he's not this genius planner.
He's not this methodical genius.
Yeah.
Not by that point. It'd be
there was-
so difficult
there
to
was a
resolve.
glimpse where I was like, maybe, and like I could see why everyone else believed it. I was like, oh, I get it now. Like that for me, a moment was, and then he obviously leaves Arthur. Then later on, he leaves John again. Like, it's like the third time he's left John. I'm like, if I was John, I'd be fucking putting a bullet in this dude. Like,
I think it's I think they handled that like very well if it was just a coincidence. I like the idea that he saw the Native Americans, and again, this is a character that's defended them the entire way through the story, but if he saw an opportunity in this roving band of people that were fighting for something that they believed in, right? How easy it would be to take that group over. You have like the older leader who's going to die soon, and you have the young brash heir to the nation who dies in that combat, and how it slides into Red Dead 1, where his gang is comprised solely of Native Americans.
it's really interesting. Yeah.
It's so great. Like, if that was Dutch's plan, which is because you can kind of see it,
I can see the connection.
I can see him planning to get a new gang. That's the thing. Like, I can see him like constantly feeding that.
You see that with Micah, where he's kind of starts to cycle toward the end.
Yeah.
Where he gets Micah's friends in. Like, there's that kind of, it's...
And then once Micah's out of the picture,
That's all
that
him.
kind of goes away. It's all him, and it's all the connections he's made
And he
with
can
these
create a
Native
new-
Americans
yeah.
fighting for their land.
And he can start a new narrative.
Yep.
And that to me is like what's so interesting about this as a continuing story, is that it does seem deeply interested in the way that we follow people and the way that kind of shapes us, I think. And was there any like closing thoughts you have for this part before we get into part 2? We're going to talk about genre and stuff like that.
Very, very quickly.
We can talk about this forever, by the way, but we have
very quickly. The epilogue and the final shootout.
Oh, the final when you become John Marston again.
When you become John Marston again.
Man.
First of all, I loved that mission
Brilliant.
up until the last 5 seconds where you confront Micah.
It's not great.
I love the Mexican shootout.
I thought it was better in front of the cave.
Cool. Yeah, exactly. But I didn't like that Dutch got to shoot Micah.
Dutch's inclusion seemed unnecessary.
Yeah.
I much would have rather seen that Micah had stolen the gold without anyone knowing.
Yeah, and then the fact that John lets Dutch get away.
Yeah,
it was confusing to me.
It's a weird I think putting him in there is good because you get to see him broken, but I don't know if it works in any other instance. I don't know it, especially because that's a third. He's been left for dead 3 times by Dutch.
Yeah.
And he's
like
there
Mike is a bad dude.
He's there
right?
for revenge anyway. So
but
pull the trigger.
Pull the fucking trigger. Kill Dutch. End this right now. And he could have, but he didn't.
And that seems like a bad writing mistake.
Yeah,
to give
and
that opportunity.
Yeah, it
just felt bad.
Silly. Yeah,
it felt silly. But then that whole sequence getting up to that hill, the music that they play is music from Red Dead 1.
Yeah.
The whole thing
running
worked.
through the snow, get your gun out.
Oh, dude,
I'm John Marston.
When you arrive and that you're in the trio and you're walking up the hill and you fucking pull out your gun and it's and the music starts playing and he goes, "I'm here for you, Micah." And I'm like, yes, good. And I got into the fucking zone. I was in the flow of that moment. And when I got to the thing, I was like, it's fucking time. And then it just kind of got weird.
Yeah, and you go, okay. You still get to kill Micah.
Full of holes, but it doesn't, I don't know if it could have. Yeah, there's another way to do that.
Yeah.
It could have been that Dutch shoots the gun out of... If they want to keep Dutch in for some reason, I don't know why. You could shoot the gun out of Micah's hand.
Yeah.
And then... Or he would put the gun down, Micah. Micah can be like, no. And he'd be like, no, put the gun down.
Yeah.
They're like, no. And then something could happen. Sadie could elbow him and he could stumble back and then you go bang, bang, bang. Something. Give someone else some agency. And it was weird that it was Dutch, I thought.
Yeah, it was very strange.
But I just... This is a game that I'm going to be thinking about for a long time.
Absolutely.
I think that we will probably talk about it for a long time because it's going to be one of those things that the more we digest it, the more we get from it.
It is, yeah. It's so huge. It's such a big game. And if you are watching this and you haven't played it, please go and pay money for this game. Pay because
support the art.
It's such a
and
good
so many people work
fucking story. For everything, it is easy. It is easy to criticize it. It's not a perfect game.
Oh, we've criticized
but
it.
It's fucking phenomenal all the same.
It's a piece of art, and not all every piece of art has its flaws. And I don't know. I support the people. I mean, it's made by a lot of people, and somehow they made something with a coherent, artistic vision that delivers on a lot of the things that it can, and fails in some areas. But I think no one else is doing things like this in the industry, save maybe CD Projekt Red. So I think if you people talking about open, single player games are dying or whatever. Rockstar's always in the corner doing God's work.
Rockstar's,
as long as Rockstar
the crazy blind hermit of the video game world.
As long as we have Rockstar and the Witcher series, we should be okay for a while.
Yeah.
So that might be a good place to end this. We're gonna do our part 2 in a minute. So if you're watching live, we're gonna take a 5 to 10 minute break, go to the bathroom, regather, grab another drink, and then we'll drop back in and we'll talk about genre, post-westerns, and try and work out what this game actually is.
Yeah, and speculations for future games.
We will talk to you then.